Hi, and welcome to another episode of Brew with the Crew. I'm Lee Foster. I'm here today with Hugh Roberts, and we're here to talk about Torsion.
Mate, so what is Torsion? Tell me about Torsion.
So, great question, mate. As always, Torsion is a platform that allows or introduces governance into the collaboration platforms of Microsoft, like SharePoint, Teams, and OneDrive. But one of the key things in this current situation we're in is everybody's rushed to enabling working from home via whatever technology. But in almost all cases, not every, but almost all, lots of people have sidestepped security or made some considerations or just pushed out security to look at it from at a later time, right? So without governance, you can't control who can do what, right? What Torsion brings, just as a product, is that visibility over who has access to what and why. And once you know that, then you can start to really talk about governance.
Yeah, right. So it's solving that problem. So get a bit more deep into how that problem is solved and what it does and what's the governance piece.
One of the key things is again having visibility over who's got access to what and why. Right. So if you think about, give an example. If you look at SharePoint, everybody that uses SharePoint can go in SharePoint and day to day they'll say share this site or this folder or this file with Hugh.
Yeah, I do it all the time.
Exactly. Right. Easy. You never get asked why. You just share it. You can access it. You're using it. Great. But what if you shouldn't have access when I try to share it? Right? How do I know that we should be collaborating on this piece of content? Or more worryingly, we collaborate on it today and a month from now you move roles and you should no longer have access, right? So the problem proliferates through the business when document sets are accessed by people that shouldn't access them. They then move around in the business or worst case leave. And in almost all Active Directories, right, you go and look, there's orphaned accounts, there's people that are still in Active Directory that left a year ago, right? The whole point of this is it gives you visibility over who has access to what, but more importantly, we'll discover who should have access based on the way they interact with that data, right? So that's what Torsion's gap is, to give you that visibility, assign ownership, and then measure and manage that ownership, right?
Yeah, right.
Therefore, so now in that example, in SharePoint, when you go to share something, instead of just saying share, Torsion is there, it's native, it's not another product that you go and connect to. It's there in SharePoint. It appears in the SharePoint portal.
So does it replace the sharing button?
Exactly.
Is that right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
When you click share now, you get share with Torsion.
Right.
And one of the big differences is that the Torsion panel pops up. It's all branded the same way Microsoft will be, or for a client or partner. And it will say, you want to share this with Hugh, but then it will ask some more specific questions like, why do you want to share it and for how long?
Yeah, right.
So the scenario I said, we're going to collaborate on something for a week, a month. You can say, I want to share this with Lee because we're collaborating on this project for a month. I get access for a month. After a month, my access gets revoked over time. I get alerted to say, this project's winding up. Your access is going to be stopped in X days, X hours, and so on.
Right, okay. And how does this integrate? I mean, it sounds similar to information protection.
Yeah.
How does it integrate with that?
Yeah, so what you find again, as I said, in a situation where you've got people pushed to work from home, you've got kind of two schools of people, right? You've got people that already have a handle around classification and identity as a whole, information protection and classification of data, right? Then you've got the other side of people that just don't know how to do that, right? So if I flip to the side that have classification, what Torsion does is it doesn't replace anything. Torsion will honor any classification. So back to the scenario where you want to share something with me, if that piece of information you're going to share is sensitive in nature and I shouldn't see it, and it's labeled that way and classified that way, as you try to share it, Torsion's going to read that label and say, you're trying to share this with Lee, it's sensitive in nature, you can't share that.
Yeah. Okay.
So Torsion will then warn you that you can't and shouldn't share. And if you ignore that, and it's set up in a way that allows you to do so, information protection underneath policy will kick in and stop that action anyway.
Got it.
Right? So it goes a long way to enabling users and their behaviors in the way that they share information.
Yeah, great.
It's core tenets.
So both can be used at the same time. That's great.
Yeah.
What happens if people do nothing, like don't implement any of these solutions? What's the outcome?
Ultimately, the outcome is what you see, sadly, in the press, and ARN and things like that, where there's been organisations that have had a breach. So maybe a real case scenario is we take a business that has a whole legal or HR team. The HR team is a great example where those HR team employees or crew members are all using sensitive personal identifiable information, sharing it like normal when they're in the office. When they go remote, they start to share that information to places that they shouldn't, share it into public SaaS platforms like OneDrive, outside of OneDrive, like Dropbox and so on, and that information gets breached.
Yeah,
right? So
of course.
In the absence of information protection as a whole and or Torsion for compliance and governance, the risk is that there'll be an information data loss breach and ending up in legal action.
Yeah, right. Interesting. I mean, and that costs lots of money, and with GDPR and the
Yeah,
new
exactly.
data protection laws,
Exactly.
it's a real issue.
I mean, to sum it up, with Torsion in place, integrated with the Microsoft stack, you've got governance. Without it, you don't. You could say you could offset the cost of mandatory breach disclosure fines and GDPR type fines versus the small cost of getting Torsion tenancy in place alongside your Microsoft subscription.
Yeah.
That's in a nutshell what Torsion is.
Right.
Cheers, mate.
Well, thanks everyone. Join us next time for another episode of Brew with the Crew.